high schools. If it's the sport you care about, we're talking about it. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Full Court Press. Happy Tuesday to you, one and all. June 30th, final day of June as we move into July.
You said it's June?
June 30th.
Feels like April.
Oh, it looks like April. I'm driving into Bear Lake. I'm at the end of the canyon. Eric, it's snowing. It's freaking snowing in Bear Lake. And I was like, this is
Tony Grove got like 3 inches of snow. Powder Mountain got like 4 or 5.
Wait, shut up. Tony got 3 inches of snow?
Something like
Nuh-uh.
that. Yeah.
That is unreal. Wow.
So my kids had to do a driving test today.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah. And
this weather?
Well, they do it on the range. Like, you got the instructor's up in a tower.
Like in a
He's
tower,
watching
right?
everybody
Yeah.
go around. And both of them said that when they got in their vehicles and turned them on, the AC was just blasting. And they did this at like 8 a.m. this morning. It was like 45 degrees outside.
Yes. How'd they do, by the way? Good?
I guess they did okay. I mean, they survived.
You didn't get any phone calls?
There were no
wrecks or
fender
anything?
benders. So I haven't got a call from my insurance agent.
Does that make you feel old?
Yes. Thank you.
Just a kick in the face. Eric Frandsen there. I'm Ajay Salvesen. So grateful to have you joining us along on the Full Court Press. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, and 106nthefan.com. If you want to participate in the show, you can by texting in at 435-339-0321.
Oh, you didn't sign out of your Twitter accounts over here.
Dude, you know what's so bad? Is that you haven't signed out either. And I'm like, I'm so tempted.
We should go a show, like, just tweeting out as the other person.
But I've done that before on your Facebook, and it didn't really end well for me. So, you love how I keep bringing that up, even though it happened like 8 years ago.
A long
you still
time ago.
scarred me from just yelling at me.
I didn't yell at you.
You pretty much did.
Was it very gentle?
Oh, it was? I remember going home and crying and thinking I wasn't going to have a job anymore. Kickoff time on today's show is 4:01 p.m. Your time now is now 4:03 on a very cold, windy, and wet Tuesday at the end of June. 2020. How are you doing? Wow.
Minor League Baseball is not doing well.
Yeah, minor league baseball is having more than just weather issues. In fact, there's a statement that has now been put out, and this is actually kind of ironic because of our guest that we're about to have on in 12 minutes. Major League Baseball has informed Minor League Baseball that it will not be providing its affiliated minor league teams with players for 2020. As a result, there will not be a minor league baseball season in 2020. These are unprecedented times for our country and our organization, as this is the first time in our history that we've had a summer without minor league baseball played. This coming from President and CEO of Minor League Baseball, Pat O'Connor. He continues, while this is a sad day for many, this announcement removes the uncertainty surrounding the 2020 season and allows our teams to begin planning for an exciting 2021 season of affordable family entertainment, end quote. Minor League Baseball, which began as the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues, was founded in September 5th of 1901. Of course, they had to throw that in there. Like, no one gives a crap right now, dude.
We've been around for a long time, but
we're not having a season,
Tell me
though.
how that affects me today.
Yeah. So that's right, 2020, you will not have Salt Lake Bees baseball. You will not have minor league baseball of any sort, including Idaho Chuckars baseball. And that's who we're actually going to have on today. Play-by-play voice radio for the Idaho Fall Chuckars. It's John, is it Balgini?
Yep,
right?
John Balgini.
Excited to hear from him. I'm kind of interested to hear his take on not having a season. Is it fair? Is it unfair? Was there communication? Was there not enough communication? Be kind of interested to hear from him.
Yeah, there's been a lot of uncertainty. What minor league baseball's role would be when Major League Baseball resumes. And frankly, minor league baseball has been under fire for the last year or so and has had a lot of pressure on it. Talk about culling some of the teams, like removing some of the teams, reducing the whole number of teams that participate in minor league baseball, and just the whole minor league system. baseball is so unique from really any other sport. I mean, the NBA has the G League where they can send guys to develop or send younger guys there to rehab to come back. And occasionally guys come out of there and get roles and opportunities in the NBA. But in minor league baseball, I mean, there is no minor league for football.
Yeah.
I mean, college football is the NFL's minor league. But for baseball, it is a significant farm system. And really, is it effective? Is that the best way to do it? Or is there another way to get players ready for the big show? So it'll be interesting to talk to John Balgini about his experience over many, many years calling minor league baseball. And he's seen some pretty significant players come through that system.
No kidding. Absolutely. And again, how significant is what's going on now? Again, it's the first time ever that they have not had a minor league baseball season in this summer. This is just, it's one of those years, man. And it's crazy because minor league baseball the players are affected because they don't get the pay, right? I mean, some players, Major League Baseball players, took out of their own checks to be able to make sure that their farm system players were taken care of. Major League Baseball isn't even doing that for these guys who don't have a season anymore. That just seems so cruel to me. I know it's, just the way things are, but you have the money. I know you have the money somewhere in the bank account to pay these guys a little something just because they got robbed of having a season. I don't know how, if you're saving a pretty penny for whatever reason, or you really can't afford it.
Well, a lot of minor league teams, they're operating on shoestring budgets as it is. But what's the role of their major league affiliates?
Yeah,
how much do they send down the chain? Yeah,
that's a good question. That's what I want to know.
They play a certain role in developing the players that go there, or providing them an opportunity to get back on track. So it's a really interesting relationship. Nothing like it in any other professional sport.
That's a great way to put it. And again, it's really unfortunate that we won't have, because you have, and I know we talked about it a little bit already, major league players complaining about not getting the extra $2 to $3 million that they wanted, while minor league players aren't getting anything. Zero. Zilch.
So this last week, I think I told you, I don't think I shared this story on air. Last week I was down in Arizona, and my niece's husband, so I don't know, does that make him my nephew-in-law? I don't know how that works. Anyway, his brother is a catcher in the minor league system for the Braves. And I think he's at just a single A level. And he said that this year has been really, really hard on his brother because there's all this uncertainty. He can't go get a regular full-time job because there's uncertainty about he may be called up. Even if it's just to help warm up a pitcher. Not really in any games, but he's got to stay physically ready. But he's bouncing around from couch to couch, from house to house, friends, family. Here's a guy that can't really go out and get a job because he might get called up. He doesn't know. Maybe today gives him a little more certainty and he can go about finding something else to do through this summer. But for all those players in the minor league system, really, really unsettling.
Yeah, it really is. And that's the unfortunate thing is, again, they're being left out to dry while Major League Baseball players get a complaint about not getting $2 to $3 million more than the $13 million they're going to be getting to play 60 games. It's just it's extremely, extremely unfortunate. Speaking of baseball, the coronavirus situation. It's gonna be kind of the theme of today's show is COVID-19 versus MLB versus NHL versus NBA versus NFL. It's kind of what you're going to be seeing here. But there's Jeff Passan of ESPN. We've heard so much from him, and he's been doing such a great job of covering the MLB situation. He has a couple of quotes here I want to steal. One of them being about how concerned should baseball be about the coronavirus in itself.
I think that the biggest concern, Scott, is when bigger names start opting out. And at this point, there have been rumors this player his wife is pregnant. Maybe he's going to want to opt out. That player, he's been around. He's got his service time. He's got his money. Why would he want to come and play? I think when it's all said and done, though, there isn't going to be a huge stream of players who do end up opting out.
That's kind of an interesting thing. It just, there's major concern, I think, in every professional sport, no matter how much money they have, that this thing could get out of control. And if it does, you're back to square one, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I think the concern is that, look, we talked about this with players in the NBA, and some of them that have announced that they aren't going to participate in Orlando. We heard yesterday Zimmerman wasn't going to participate.
Yeah, how about that?
And so, because if I think there's a concern, a legitimate concern, that if they bring something home to a family member who is immunocompromised or they're in a high-risk category, they get the disease, they turn out really sick, or heaven forbid, die, man, those players would just feel awful.
Yeah, it'd be sick to their stomach, right?
And their teammates and their organization. And, boy, can you imagine the lawsuits that are going to be coming?
Oh.
So I just think that it's really tricky, especially where Major League Baseball is not operating in a bubble. There are dozens of baseball facilities all over the country. There's going to be travel back and forth, people coming in and out of those facilities, workers, the staff, and it's just going to be really hard to control. It's going to get worse in Major League Baseball before it gets better.
Yeah,
is my prediction. Just because there's so many players, so many staff all over the country, they're going to be traveling all over the country, and they're not really going to be able to contain it.
Do you think that's going to be the case in every sport, or is that just baseball?
Well, NFL, college football, it's not going to be any better. I don't know how you do college football or the NFL in a bubble.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, you can go to the spring training sites. You can set up a pod of teams in Arizona and a pod of teams in Florida. Problem is, those are two states that are among the worst right now with where the spikes are happening. So it's not necessarily the best idea either.
Speaking of, I know we got to go to break here as we get to John Balgini on the line, but speaking of not playing in a bubble, Buster Only, more on that.
The effort to try to contain this has got to be so much greater because there's so many more portals through which players can get infected. It's exponentially more than what we're seeing in the NBA with its bubble.
Ooh. Trouble, if you ask me. It's just trouble that we're asking for. Maybe I'm crazy.
It's going to be a really, really difficult task. The level of testing, the level of managing what everybody does when they're not at the arena is going to be a real big challenge.
Absolutely.
Big time challenge. And with the NBA, that we'll get into that a little bit later, but there's growing doubts that bubble may not even happen. As more Brooklyn Nets players are testing positive. 3 unidentified New Orleans Pelicans have been testing positive.
And according to Walter Chanowski, we'll get into that in a little bit too, he says there's more players dropping out. He doesn't think that's the end of the list, that there are a lot more players now, much more concerned than they were a week ago about doing this.
Yep.
Not a good thing. All right, we're going to take a break. Coming back, John Balgini, the radio play-by-play voice of the Idaho Falls Chuckers, is going to join us. Ironically, it's going to be on the day when they announced that there will be no minor league baseball for the first time ever in the summer. It's all coming up on the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Ajay Salvesen, 106 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
The Aggies are number one here. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
The Full Court Press, 106 on FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, 1069thefan.com. Eric Frandsen, Ajay Salvesen here. Good to have you all along, and great to have our guest along here, Eric.
Yeah, John Balgini, he is a Hall of Famer, we can call him now. We're in the presence of a Hall of Famer, Ajay. Just recently inducted into the Idaho Falls Professional Baseball Hall of Fame. John has called over 1,000 baseball games for the Idaho Falls Chuckers. He sat alongside a great play-by-play man for many years. And John has taken over those duties and over the last little while. And you can also hear him on ESPN Sports Radio in Southeast Idaho. And John Balgini joins us now on the Full Court Press. John, thanks for your time today.
Hi, John.
Hey, guys. How you doing? How's things in Logan?
Cold and wet.
Cold and wet.
It doesn't feel like June
here.
30th, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, same here, that's for sure.
Now, this normally would be about the time where the Idaho Falls Chuckers would be doing some things, but on a normal, regular year, but it's not happening. And not only has it just been delayed, now today we find out the whole season is going to be canceled.
Yep, the official announcement came today that there will be no minor league baseball anywhere in the United States in 2020 due to the pandemic. And, of course, the Idaho Falls Chuckers, last year's Pioneer League champs, are looking forward to defending that title. It's not going to happen, and of course, there's a chance they might not have any baseball next summer in 2021. And we've had professional baseball here in Idaho Falls since 1940, so 80 years of professional baseball all wiped out this year due to the virus, and perhaps next year due to the greedy owners of the Major League Baseball. I'll get that off my chest right now.
Yeah, well, minor league baseball's had its own issues before this pandemic hit. There were discussions about trimming how many teams would be available and would participate, and the plight of minor league baseball has become more pronounced over the last 6 to 8 months. It seems like, even before this virus hit.
No doubt. There are currently 160 minor league teams across the nation, and if Major League Baseball gets its way, 42 of those teams will be no longer affiliated with Major League Baseball, and that includes all 8 in the Pioneer League, including the Ogden team and the Orem team. So, it's not a good thing. The future's not looking bright.
What are the feelings? I know you stay close to the players and managers and the staff. What are the feelings from the minor league guys right now who lost their season and aren't going to get that financial income? You have major league players complaining about not getting an extra $1 to $2 million. These minor league players are getting completely robbed of not just a season, but financially as well.
That's true, but there is one silver lining. The Kansas City Royals, I think one of only 2 or 3 major league teams, they did not release any players. They're going to pay their players through the month of August. So hats off to the Royals. I think again only 1 or 2 teams did that, but they did not release anybody. They've kept everybody on the payroll. So at least the Royal minor leaguers will be treated the right way.
John, we were discussing this before we had you on. Major League Baseball has a farm system unlike anyone else, a way to develop players to get ready for the big leagues. Right. NBA has its G League. It's a developmental league. It's growing. It's improving a little bit here and there. You see a few guys that spend time there, then make it into the NBA, but they really don't turn out to be too big of a star. But for Major League Baseball, everybody goes through the minor league system. Do they really need that many layers of a developmental process before you get to the major league system?
Maybe not, Eric. Maybe 160 teams, 6 different levels, maybe too many. But I was just reading some stuff today, and the new current Chicago Cubs manager David Ross, a former Major League Baseball catcher, he said that he valued his time in the minor leagues. Long bus rides, it builds character, and he says even though maybe 10% of the kids in the rookie league or maybe 5% make it to the bigs, he says the situation of growing up in the minor leagues, learning the ropes was far more important than, just going right to the major leagues. So, not only is it tough for, communities that have lost jobs, et cetera, but even these former big leaguers who are now managers, they enjoyed their time in the minor leagues, and they said it's going to be a shame if these teams are cut.
I know it's kind of a personal opinion, but do you think this major league thing can work out for 60 games without any hiccups?
Personally, I don't think so. I mean, already guys are opting out. Ian Desmond, the Rockies said, "Hey, I'm not going to play baseball this year. It's more important to be a dad." I've heard that some of the players, if their wives are pregnant, they're not going to play because due to the fact that this COVID thing's so out of control. So, personally, I'm a huge baseball fan, but not impressed with the 60-game schedule, and I think we're going to see some of the big names opt out and won't even be playing this summer.
For a guy like yourself, who you love baseball, you've called a lot of games, what kind of summer is it going to be for you?
Well, luckily, I've been doing some American Legion baseball on the radio here in Idaho Falls. And
Oh, wow.
you might say, then, no big deal, but the Idaho Falls Bandits won the national championship last year in American Legion baseball. It's a good program. So, folks were asking me all winter, or when this COVID thing hit, are you excited you're going to get to do some American Legion ball? And I said, well, yes and no. I mean, it's baseball, granted, but it's not professional baseball. But at least I can go to the ballpark every couple of days and call some games. So I'm happy with that.
And you can hang out on the Jim Gar Show broadcast booth. That's always a good time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've spent 35 straight summers there at that ballpark, and if I didn't have anything to do this summer, it definitely would have been a big loss.
John Balgini, the radio play-by-play voice for the Idaho Chuckars, and of course, spit shine with the title of being a Hall of Famer, joins us here on the Full Court Press. John, I got to ask you, you talked about the 35 summers that you spent and all the great games you called. Can you talk about some of the great players you've seen come through the system?
When I first started, we were with the Atlanta Braves, and not too many. The Braves sent us some bad players. I mean, not a lot of kids made it to the big leagues, but of course, Billy Butler, all-star at Kansas City, he started his career in Idaho Falls, and in fact, most of the Royals that won the 2015 World Series, Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Salvador Perez, all started their careers in Idaho Falls. So it's pretty neat to watch these kids start as 16, 17-year-olds, and then 5-6 years later you see them in the World Series. So those are some of the big names.
That's cool. Didn't Jose Canseco spend some time in Idaho Falls once upon a time?
Jose Canseco, yep, he played when the Oakland A's were in town back in the early 80s or late 70s, and I understand he wasn't a good fielder then, and he still isn't a good fielder.
What about on the opposing? Go ahead.
No balls went off his head here in Idaho Falls.
What about on the opposing side? Some of the guys who've on opposing teams, who's the best player you've seen come to Idaho to play the Chuckers?
Wow. I'd have to think of that. There's been quite a few. Adam Dunn, who hit a lot of home runs with the Reds. He was in Billings. The Ogden Raptors, they're loaded every season. I mean, Corey Seager played in Ogden. Pretty much most of the Dodgers that are in the majors now started their careers in Ogden.
Wow, that's interesting. So so this season is done, but as you said, there's a real threat that the whole Pioneer League could be kind of cut away from Major League Baseball. Would they form just a unique, their own independent league, or do those teams just fold up shop?
Well, it's funny because, of the 8 teams in the Pioneer, I would say 4 probably make good money and, are in the black every year. Idaho Falls, Ogden certainly, Billings, and probably one of the teams in Colorado. But if the Pioneer League goes away and Major League Baseball, contracts the team and they're no longer, there's a couple of ideas. Major League Baseball has said there's a chance they could have somewhat of a dream team where they wouldn't give us players, but they would give us some money to operate, and but all the salaries and stuff would be basically on the owners of the local teams to burden, and that's a chance. They've talked about maybe an all-college, all-wood bat league like they do back in the Cape Cod League back east. So, talking with Kevin Green, the president, and here in Idaho Falls, he says he feels good. There's going to be baseball next year, but it looks like maybe not professional baseball.
John, I grew up listening to Steve Klauke's voice of the Salt Lake Bees, and I had a chance to work with him for 3 years on the radio broadcast producing side of it, and it fell in love with the relationship I had with him. Who are some of the broadcasters as you were growing up and that you listened to that helped you really get into broadcasting?
I think I'm not a Dodger fan, but Vin Scully. I mean, you can't beat the voice he had, and he worked solo all those years. Most announcers have a color man, but Vin Scully, the guy from Detroit, God, his name escapes me right now, but I listen to a lot of Vin Scully, and we have some pretty good broadcasters in El Paso, Texas, where I grew up, and that's where I sort of got in, fell in love with baseball. And that's another thing, Eric. We lose. If the team goes away, a lot of local jobs are gone, and I think Idaho Falls last year gave some $800,000 back to nonprofit organizations. That's all gone, and plus the little kids. They come to the games and they see these kids play, the professionals. And if that goes away, who can afford to drive to Denver or Seattle to watch baseball? I think it's really going to hurt the entire baseball world.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually was thinking of that earlier today, that for a big portion of the United States, if you want to experience baseball at a professional level, by and large, it's going to be at a minor league park.
Yeah, I mean, it's affordable. It's a family fun situation, and especially towns in the Pioneer League. I mean, we're a long ways away from any Major League Baseball club. So, I think if Major League Baseball takes away these 42 teams, I think it's going to hurt them in the long run as far as, getting youngsters into baseball.
Well, it's an interesting announcement today. I think we all kind of saw it coming. It just became official today.
Yeah. And I don't know why they waited so long. I mean, there have been clubs that have kept people on salary hoping, but I think this thing could have been made maybe a couple of months ago when the whole COVID thing hit. But, it is what it is. And as far as Major League Baseball, yeah, it's 60 games. Yeah, it's baseball, but I don't know if I'll be watching a lot.
I would assume that the players, and maybe even some of the coaches, managers with the Chuckers, were they even in town? Have they even been anywhere near Idaho Falls?
No, they were in Arizona at spring training when this whole thing sent, and then Kansas City, the Royals just sent everybody back home to where they live in the off season. So yeah, we had nobody in town. Our season doesn't start till usually mid-June. So yeah, we saw nobody, and it's just it ended just like Rudy Gobert. You blame him; he got it, and everything else.
That's right. He shut it all down. The biggest defensive move ever.
Sports down. Yep.
Last question for you. I don't know if you've heard through your through your connections with the Chuckers, but I'm assuming that baseball will still need some kind of mechanism to call guys up for replacement if somebody gets hurt, or to send guys down for rehab. Is that just at the AAA level, or are they just going to have like camps, designated areas where they can just work on things until they're ready to come back? Have you heard how that might work?
Yeah, normally each Major League team has a 40-man roster, okay? So this year, each team has a 60-man roster. They're going to allow, I think, 30, 35 with the team, and then the other 25 will continue to work out probably at their spring training locations. And then if, somebody gets hurt, they can move them up. But, yeah, so each team will have 60 men practicing and playing baseball this summer. But other than that, everybody else is just, I guess, on their own.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy times, Eric, no doubt.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Balgini, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate you. We wish you the very best, and we hope to do this again soon.
Hey, guys, keep up the good work. And, by the way, this Hall of Fame thing, I always say, if you're around long enough, they got to give you something.
Hey, really, what was?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was asking, what was that like to be announced, to hear the words Hall of Fame with your name?
Yeah, it was a pleasure and honor. I mean, there's only 5 names that have been retired or numbers. Jackie Robinson's one, of course, the great major leaguer. Don Werner, who was a manager for the Idaho Falls Padres. He won a couple of Pioneer League championships. Billy Butler, again, as I told, 10-year major league veteran who started his career. And then my partner, Jim Garshow, who sort of taught me everything. So there are 5 names that are up on the press box wall of the at Melaleuca Field that will be honored. Now, I'm just, I'm proud and honored to have my name up there as well.
Yeah, just a bummer that the ceremony took place in There weren't any games going on, or any fans there to appreciate it.
Yeah, there instead of 3,000, there's about 300, but that's okay.
Well,
maybe we'll have them redo it again next year when there's more fans.
There you go.
You know, you should request that. As a Hall of Famer, I demand this.
Hey, Mr. Balgini, again, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate you. Stay safe, and we hope to hear your voice sometime soon down the road.
Hey, thanks, guys. You, like I said, keep up the good work in Logan.
All right, thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Yep.
John Balgini, Hall of Famer, friend of the program, does a great job for the Idaho Falls Chuckers, and now calling American Legion baseball just to help pass the time, really.
Dude, I didn't know they won the National American Legion Championship. Do you know how big of a deal that is? Like, you have to be really, really talented to win an American Legion Championship. Like, that is some really good baseball. We have that Cash Sox team here, comprised of graduated seniors who didn't get to play baseball this past spring, and they're on the same team. And they're really good, and I still, and with all due respect to Alex Hansen, who's the manager of that team and whatnot, still don't think they can compare to, like, what some of these other teams in Idaho are doing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so in really interesting perspective on the news that came down today and became official. Actually, we've been talking to John for about 2-3 weeks, just kind of going back and forth, trying to line up our schedules. And a few days ago, we said, hey, how about Tuesday? Okay. And then the news happens this afternoon right before we go on the air. So it was serendipitous that it worked out that way.
All right, we're going to take a break. Coming back, NBA news, got to get through. Players not so sure they want to come back. And for a varied amount of reasons why, usually surrounded by the COVID-19 or for family reasons that they would rather stay home. NHL is still looking for 2 hub cities to play their 2014 tournament. What are their solutions? What are their ideas? Where do they do from here? Because their camps start next week. What's the solution? It's all coming up on the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Ajay, Salvesen, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Ajay Salvesen.
Without Bogdanovich, now what do you do without that one really reliable shooter?
Well, it may be by committee. It may be rotating a lot of different guys through there.
Does that work?
If they want to have a chance in this, I think Mike Connolly plays a larger role in that. He doesn't play anything close to the same position as Bojan, but he can help the rest of the team be better if he played at his most optimal.
Starting at 4 p.m. on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, and 106.9thefan.com.
Interviews, analysis, and a little bit of fun mixed in. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
I'm not good with multiple buttons.
Dude, that was a lot of fun talking to John Balgini.
Yeah, dude, he's so good. Yeah, you could tell just his passion for the game, his passion for Idaho Chuckars baseball. You know, there's a reason why he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's been doing it a long time.
35 years, is that what?
35 years, yeah.
Good night.
Did a long time with Jim Garshow. Jim Garshow's a great man. I know Jim. He's passed away about 10 years ago or so. But he was an icon for the for sports in Southeast Idaho, especially with the Idaho Falls Chuckars.
How did you know him?
We have an association with some radio stations up there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Got to know him personally. I know John personally. So really, it's a shame this was the first time we had John Balgini on our show.
I'd say so.
But timing was perfect to get him on and share his insights and how he thinks it impacts that minor league club, how it's going to impact Ogden, Orem, Salt Lake. So it's a rough day for those that like and plan to go to minor league baseball games.
If you're looking for that John Balgini interview, it is now up on our podcast on 106nthefan.com. It's also on Stitcher, iTunes, and Spotify, where you can find that and much more, including our shows and other personal interviews that we have done with many other great voices. Sam Fassini, Chris Vanini, and Adam Amin joined us last week, who were really, really, really good. You learn about Sam Merrill and where he fits in that group of great, college basketball players that could be drafted. They're high on him. Utah State, Mountain West Conference football from Chris, and then just, sports as a whole, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball from Adam Amin. So good stuff.
One of the things that coming out about baseball today with this whole coronavirus and trying to resume play or whatnot, we're hearing that some players are deciding not to participate Well, Major League Baseball is saying that, look, if any player or anyone in our organization tests positive, we're not going to let you know. They just may not be. They'll just be unavailable for a while. And really, they're saying, look, the HIPAA laws prevent us from identifying those players. So you can identify a player who's not playing because he turned an ankle, or he's got a bad wrist, or he's got a hurt shoulder, but you can't identify somebody who's got coronavirus.
Doesn't make sense.
I understand HIPAA.
It.
I get it. I get what that is intended for, but you're talking all the time about why a player is or is not available.
Yeah,
it's suddenly like, oh, well, you know what? There's a line here. We're not going to cross this one.
Hey, can I ask you just kind of a sidestep question within MLB? You talked about how Ryan Zimmerman was not going to play now. Do you think, what other big names can you think of that might say, not going to do it? And how much will it kill the MLB in ratings and wanting to watch it? If you're not getting guys like, Ryan Zimmerman or pitchers like Justin Verlander, I mean, how much is it going to kill?
What if you get a guy like Chris Bryant or Mike Trout or
even
the major stars that say, you know what, just for the sake of my family, for my own personal health, for those that I might potentially infect if I come in contact, I'm not going to do it. If you get a collection of stars, then that's really going to affect. And I wonder if it's like fringe players, does that really matter that much? But if you start to get some stars starting to back away, how many other players are like, well, gosh, if he's not going to play, and here's a guy that's chasing a potential ring. If he's not going to play, then why am I playing?
Hey, going back to your conversation about how they wouldn't identify how many players or what players were going to be would test positive for the coronavirus. Buster Only on that and more.
Based on what I'm hearing at the team level about how this is all playing out, I've heard phrases like false hustle. Why are we doing this? This is crazy. And a lot of it obviously is because there's things going on that are completely outside of the control of Major League Baseball. I wrote in a column the other day that for baseball to attempt to restart right now is like getting into a sailboat as you see the outer bands of a hurricane on the horizon. Because you think about, the surge in numbers, about 160,000 new cases in this country over the last 4 days, and they're all centered in the most important states for Major League Baseball, Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, where so many players live. And so what I'm hearing at the team level is, great, all of these guys are going to be getting on planes to go to and report to their respective teams amid all these surging numbers, and there's a lot of curiosity and a lot of concern about what the positive test numbers are later this week.
And really quickly with that, the players also wants some transparency in the situation as well.
When Major League Baseball learns later this week how many players have tested positive, they owe it to the players and the employees to know exactly how many people have tested positive in every organization. I sent something out along the lines of that on Twitter the other night, and I got back from folks at the team level basically said, look, we're because we're trying to honor HIPAA laws, we've been instructed to be more vague. Well, you would hope and you would assume that the Players Association representing the players will go to Major League Baseball and say, look, we need to have those numbers precise and out there so that as players make this decision whether or not to participate, they have as full of context as they possibly can about how many people in each clubhouse, each organization are infected.
So we were talking about this, injured list that Major League Baseball has. They're actually going to have what will be called COVID-19 related injured list. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a positive test. It could be that they're isolating themselves because they may have been exposed. It could be that they're just sick and they have some symptoms that require self-isolation. So their Major League Baseball will have a unique COVID-19 related injured list. as a reason why a player may or may not be participating on the roster. Could mean he's tested positive. They won't tell you if he's tested positive. Could mean maybe he's come in contact with somebody and he needs to isolate. Maybe he's got a cough. We're not sure. We're going to isolate him until we find out.
Do you think it's fair? Like if a player does get put out there that he does have COVID-19?
Well, his teammates are going to know. And probably Major League Baseball at large is probably going to know. But they're going to try to... The team itself will not make it public.
I think it gets out there, though. In this day and age, in this world, it's going to get out there.
Look what happened to Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
He was trying to keep it quiet. Somebody else said that he had it, and he was upset. Says, hey, how about HIPAA? Oh, what about these privacy laws? Turns out he had it. We know 3 New Orleans Pelicans players have it. We don't know who they are, but we know that in the NBA, they've had, 16 players test positive from the 22 teams that are supposed to be in Orlando. Now, what I don't know is if that 16 includes Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. If those are positive tests from months ago that are no longer problematic, but if that's a cumulative or if that's like as players are starting to report back to their teams, that's how many positive tests we have. We know we have a couple positive tests with the Brooklyn Nets. We know we have 3 positive tests with the New Orleans Pelicans. Man, how many others are out there?
Yeah, and the thing is it's not even close to being figured out. Like everyone, because I remember in April, I think we all kind of said, "Hey, by June we'll have this figured out. We'll have an idea of how to solve this equation." And now we're in June, and we still don't have really any great answers.
We're in July.
Yes, yeah, July. Any solidified answers of what the solution can or should be. And that's what scares me the most.
Well, the NHL's not any better. They've reporting 15 players testing positive as among the 250 players that are going to be participating in their playoffs. They've had 15 confirmed tests.
Yeah, and with Emily Kaplan of ESPN, it talks about how crucial that this week, with training camp starting on July 10th, how crucial this week is for the NHL.
We'll also probably find out the Phase 3 and Phase 4, that's training camp and games protocols, that the players and the league have been debating on and negotiating for the last couple weeks. And finally, some really exciting news. We could get a memorandum of understanding and an extension on this collective bargaining agreement. And if you know anything about hockey, you know that labor peace isn't exactly the thing in this sport. We love work stoppages, so that would be huge.
The other thing to it is that they're supposed to have, because they're just going to go into a 24-team tournament.
Right.
They also need 2 hub cities to play that. That is also a concern.
And that blows my mind. We're this close to them starting, and they still don't have identified where they're going to go?
The NHL probably is going to go to Vegas because we're going to get some clarity in the next couple days, maybe as soon as tomorrow, as what the 2 hub cities the NHL is going to go to. Now, Nevada has had a spike in cases. That hasn't spooked the NHL yet. I think they're still going there. And then it's going to probably be a Canadian city, either Toronto or Edmonton.
Aren't they having issues in Canada, though? So would teams be able to... How's that work?
The problems with Canada is they're restricting travel from the United States.
Yeah. Because
there's been such a spike in cases in the United States, they're trying to restrict any Americans from crossing their borders. And that's the problem with Major League Baseball as well.
The other thing about it is that the NHL has no plans to quarantine players during training camp. None.
I'm sure that's going to change.
That's got to change.
It's got to change.
That has to, man. And I got a question for you. For a state, what? Because you just heard Emily talk about where the Nevada has had a rise in cases for COVID-19, but the NHL isn't concerned about it. At what point do you get concerned about cases rising in the state before you're like, maybe this isn't a good idea, or is it just if your own players get tested positive?
Well, I think you have to consider what's that support system to make that tournament happen. Like concessions. Not concessions, so you don't have fans, that's not the right word, but food vendors for the players. Hotel staff. People who maintain the arena. Who maintain the locker room. Who, transport you to and from the game. your bus drivers, your other people, your other personnel that are there as part of the support that make it possible. Broadcast crews, the local people that are there that are part of the system to make it all work. So I think that's what's a big concern. If it's a spike in that community, those are the people that are coming in and out, that you may be able to isolate your players and your participants to some degree, but what about all that other support staff to help make it possible?
Yeah, which is even just a bigger issue. It's a huge issue, actually, coming to think about it. All right, we're going to take a break. Coming back, we're going to wrap up with some NBA talk. Conversations of more players dropping out of this restart season coming up in Orlando. Now, remember, teams travel next week, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Jazz leave on the 7th. Camp then starts, and then you have your season, which starts on July 30th. How many players drop out? When's the appropriate time to drop out? When is it too late? And what damage does it do to some basketball teams? And if are there any major stars that are thinking about doing so? That and more coming up here on the Full Court Press as we wrap it up here on a Tuesday afternoon. 106 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Eric Frandsen, Ajay, Salvesen, 106 on FM, 1390 AM, and 106onthefan.com. Thanks for joining us on a Tuesday. Hope you've enjoyed our show. We thank John Balgini for doing so. And, man, we feel for the minor league staff, members, players, coaches, and fans who will not have a season this year. And according to MiLB, which, by the way, they wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it began in 1901, will not have a season for the first time ever. Unreal.
It's too bad.
It is. I'm with you,
man.
Really
feel bad for those players that were. That's their hope, right?
Yeah.
To play professional baseball. And they were planning on a summer in a system to hopefully play well and get noticed and get called up and advance. They don't even have anything.
Eric, do you remember what we were going to talk about with NFL? I still can't find it, and I don't remember.
Well, so they're going to cancel the Hall of Fame game.
That's right. Thank you.
They're canceling the ceremonies.
But they're going to have training
camp. But they're still having
training
camp. They're still planning on doing everything regular.
And the interesting thing is that the NFL Players Association has said, hey, please do not work out as teammates or anything like that. Yet Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, who else is it? Russell Wilson, all are like, well, forget it. We're going to go do it. So what is it? What side of the fence do we sit on, NFL? Are we gonna take the cautious side and say no, we're not gonna have any workouts, period? Or are you gonna say, yeah, we're gonna have team workouts and let's go? Because if we're gonna have team workouts, let them work out as teammates. What's the big issue?
Oh, the NFL owners are going to meet on Thursday. Apparently, it's on a conference call. They're not going to meet in person, but they're going to be talking about some of the specifics about training camps and what the season might look like. So they got a lot of things they got to try to figure out, though. You can play baseball, with the exception of what happens at home plate, with physical distancing. You can't play basketball. You cannot play football with physical distancing.
There's no way.
No.
So, again, that's my issue is that, hey, we're going to cancel the Hall of Fame game and its ceremony on August 6th and 8th. But, hey, we're still going to have training camps. And you're still being able to go into facilities and work out with one another.
It just seems odd. Is it one way or the other?
Yeah, exactly. What side of the fence are we sitting on?
Why
here?
are you canceling the game if you're still practicing
so
and planning on playing the
right
regular
now.
season?
It bugs me. It's so inconsistent in so many ways. Speaking of, I mean, not inconsistent as much, but just the fact that the NBA is having issues with players are actually starting to worry about not, we got to be quick here, but not being able to be safe while playing inside the bubble.
Right.
Eric, how big of an issue does this become before camp starts?
Well, I think it's similar to what we talked about with Major League Baseball. As soon as a major, significant all-star says, you know what, I just don't think it's safe enough, then I think it becomes a bigger issue. I mean, you already got a player on a contending team. Avery Bradley says, I'm not going to participate. So, but again, if it was LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, I think it becomes a very different set of discussion.
For John Balgini, Eric Frandsen, I'm Ajay Salvesen. Thanks for listening to the Full Court Press. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Everybody.